If you build regularly in Minecraft, but not too professionally, you probably at one point have questioned yourself if there was a way to move builds in or between worlds. And if you're experienced in the field, you probably at the very least have heard of what WorldEdit is and was. An alternative to Minecraft's missing feature, which allowed you to build with ease with the use of commands, allowing you to create everything from flat planes to three-dimensional shapes to even complex path shapes. It allowed you to store builds in their custom .schematic file format, which was easy to handle, easy to save, and easy to paste anywhere. However, it was always just the plugin, and even if it always had featured a separate Forge or Fabric version, it was still not official and not integrated in vanilla. In vanilla, simple commands like /fill would get added eventually, but they still never filled the true WorldEdit niche it provided. And so, Mojang thought of an idea, probably, mostly, to their own benefit, as it is what they now use to create their own system of modular structure generation. And so they created structure blocks, and by extension Jigsaw blocks, which got added later. Blocks allowing both developers, Mojang or not, and the player base to have an official, supposedly easy and dynamic way to globalize and standardize saving structures. So let's start by the very beginning, shall we? Structure block was conceived in 1.9. version, which includes some data for it, including these early textures, and basically nothing else. No item ID, no functionality. Even trying to restore it just gives you nothing. I even tried personally editing my inventory with external tools, which is how I wanted to check if there even is an item ID, and as you can see, no, it just does not exist. Not with the GIF command and not editing. It was then in the updated 1.10 where structure blocks were actually obtainable as a working item, as you can see in the background. The use was kind of simple, although a bit confusing if you have no idea, which was actually a problem because there were no guides basically. There was no official documentation on how to use structure blocks. So you're supposed to grab two corners with these clunky blocks, select the corner mode for each, name each one the exact same, and then place another block. Save the structure with the exact same name, and then you can load it freely. It's a bit cumbersome, alright? It does its purpose, mostly with the addition of Jigsaw blocks released in 2019, which do help mod makers and datapack makers alike. And well, Jigsaw blocks, in case you don't know, work to connect pre-made structure pieces together during world generation, allowing Minecraft to procedurally build modular structures like villages or bastions with ease, without the need to be hard-coding everything into the game's files. And I mean, yeah, it does speed up a lot of the process for a lot of the niche demographic it's supposed to cover, but that's about it. 1.11 also saw the introduction of woodland mansions, the first structure in the game to use this new generation, which, without Jigsaw blocks yet, did use this structure block but with a little help of hard coding. However, was the basis for the actual current Jigsaw system, as they realized how messy that was. Jigsaw blocks were then added in 1.14 to accelerate and automate the whole process for future structures, and a small block called structure void also helped tell the game which blocks should be able to be replaced and which should be air. For example, the outside of a desert temple should entirely consist of voids, while the inside just has to be default air blocks, so the game knows that has to be empty, while the outside can be buried in sand, as you're seeing right now. So well, Mojang made a way to help people who need these tools to help themselves and to help people move structures, right? And perhaps that sounds really good to you, because in paper, it does, it sounds really good. But there's many caveats and small details they don't tell you about. For starters, the UI for everything is bad. It's clunky, it's slow, and overcomplicated. The limit for structure blocks is absolutely disgraceful, giving you a 48 by 48 by 48 limit, now increased from the old 32, which was even worse. This basically means that you cannot save large structures at all, and everything has to be fragmented. This limit basically just exists for Mojang's own convenience, not ours. These limits are made to fit Mojang's pipeline and work ethic, not ours. And it's hard-coded, like I said, meaning that you cannot change it, not even editing the files, unless you use some outside tool. But now that you're going to use an outside tool, why don't you just use WorldEdit instead? Or any of the brand new alternatives rising up? And that's kind of the issue. It's a flawed system, yes, it doesn't quite fit for casual builders, and it does the bare minimum to have an accessible system to store structures to generate and put a checkmark on the list. And the best thing that it does is actually just provide the power of the Jigsaw block, which is the one to actually be unique and help. One good thing though is that structure blocks have the ability to be chained with redstone, allowing them to load huge piece by piece buildings immediately. And basically those are the basic advantages of them. They're not too useful, not too useless, and basically just cover Mojang's own needs whilst not giving much thought into the player base. And all this time I've been talking about Java, because Bedrock has them too. Bedrock Edition features the structure block with a slightly different UI design, like it always does, but this time, for once, perhaps for the better. It feels less confusing and more straightforward. Bedrock also has an exclusive 3D export structure block mode, which allows you to export your structure into a .glb 3D file. I've tried it with this tower of mine and it does work like charm, and the UV mappings seem pretty good too. It's not precisely something I crave for the game to have, but I'm grateful it's at least implemented in some official capacity. But it was always added to Java first. In fact, it took about 2 years to be added to Bedrock. The structure block went through a pretty rough and long development too, since Mojang wanted to make it tailor-made for their needs. At first, it featured this texture I showed before, which would just have crude letters of each mode it was using. Multiple images posted by developers showed these textures in action, some way in between 1.9 and 1.10's development. So yeah, the issue was not fixed, not by any means. WorldEdit still claimed the crown as the best building tool, like it had been for years, and structure blocks didn't really become useful to the general player base until Jigsaws were introduced, mostly because there were already many ways to import and export structures into the game. Because mods have been there for a very long time, and very sophisticated and very easy to use tools had existed for long. I can just start naming them: WorldEdit, MCEdit, World Painter, Axiom, and many more tools that have been discontinued through the years for many different versions of the game. Adding the stupid block that only overcomplicates things that have been solved by the community for years didn't solve anyone's problems, not even Mojang's. And despite so, better building tools which have surpassed WorldEdit already exist, such as the aforementioned Axiom. That does not mean that Axiom can't be used with WorldEdit. In fact, it's better if you use both, which is what I do building my own maps and projects. It's just kind of a shame Mojang tends to butcher features like this. Just compare how easy it is to replace all water blocks with obsidian in this perimeter using WorldEdit versus the new syntax for all vanilla /fill command. It's just night and day. But oh well. I guess it's always up to the community to create the best tools. I guess Mojang can rest. They already made the best fucking selling game of all time. They just have to stick to adding zombie camels instead of a blender simulator in Minecraft. What about you? Have you ever used structure blocks? And what about jigsaws? And for map makers or mod makers watching this video, how do you think they truly fare against the community-driven alternatives we've had for years? Let me know down below. And if you're interested in building professionally, you should really check out Axiom, the current best way to do so.